Welcome back to Universal Grace. I am your host, Nadine Grace. Our guest today is Dr. Selvi. Dr. Selvi was actually with us last week and she delivered an amazing, powerful message and conversation that the whole world needs to hear. And for some reason, her message was not, when I went to convert the Zoom file, it said it was not found, or they could not process it. So she was able to, clear her schedule. Thankfully, I'm very grateful for that. And she's here again to deliver that very powerful message that a lot of people can use to change their life. She guides women to soothe their Crohn's and regain their life naturally, realizing that the answers to healing herself took more than what her medical doctors or her own medical training could offer. Dr. Selvi successfully explored alternatives to get to remission and remain in remission for 10 years. Her passion lies in applying these and other methods she learned along the way to help her clients regain their life from the pain and exhaustion of Crohn's. Dr. Selvi lives in New York and she's free from the grip of Crohn's. She loves nothing more than to dance, travel, and explore in her free time. Welcome, Dr. Selvi. How are you?
I'm great, Nadine. Thank you so much for having me back.
You are most welcome. We were just speaking. I said, I've never had this happen before, where I enjoyed our conversation so much. And then when I went to process it, it was completely gone. And prior to that, I got kicked out of my own meeting.
Yes. You hiccups along the way for sure, but we're making it happen.
So we're here again, and I am very grateful to have you back, Dr. Selvi, and I'm so looking forward to you sharing your powerful message with your story, of having Crohn's. So it's all yours.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, that conversation was great. So I need to kind of rewind a little bit and start at the beginning, if you will. So, I was diagnosed in college, actually. But even prior to that, like I'd been sick as a kid, on and off, on and off. I'd always thought that I just kind of had a weak energy or a weak immune system. But I'd had ulcers in my mouth, and looking back, like that was absolutely a symptom of Crohn's that stemmed back to at least the age of 7, as far as I can remember. And it got interesting because, sometime after that, I decided I wanted to play the clarinet. So trying to put that mouthpiece in with the ulcers was not happening. So a few challenges along the way for sure. And I'd always had what I was told was a sensitive stomach. So, it was always like, you got a stomach virus of some sort. I had vomiting, I had diarrhea, and then it would get better, but then it would happen again. And so no answers, just more confusion. And I figured, okay, well, I guess that's just kind of how it is. And that's kind of how it's going to be for me. And that's sort of the cards that I was dealt. But then when I fast forward, when I got to college, at one point, I had this diarrhea that just wouldn't stop. And, it wasn't explosive, but it was just annoying. And I would take over the counter diarrhea medicines like Imodium or something like that. And it wasn't stopping. So then it was just, okay, now this is strange. It would always stop in the past. Now it's not stopping. Maybe something's going on, but maybe not, because we've never gotten answers before. And my parents decided to reach out to one of our family friends who is a doctor and have him run some blood work and tests and things like that. So he did. And that was when it actually showed on my blood work that my inflammatory markers were really, really high. And here I was like, nothing's going to come up because nothing's ever come up in the past anyway. So, and then something did. And he said, okay, well, it looks like there's some kind of inflammation going on. We don't really know what's happening. Let's do another test. And I was like, great, another test. Fantastic. Okay. And it was a Barium Swallow. So you drink this delicious chalky tasting liquid. And it's disgusting. Anyways, and it's heavy, and it coats your whole digestive tract. And they take pictures, like X-ray type pictures, up until the end of the small intestine. And that was where they found inflammation, was at the end of the small intestine for me, the terminal ileum, which is pretty classic for Crohn's, as I learned much later. And so went back and he said, okay, I think it's time that you see a gastroenterologist to, figure out what to do with this. We have something at least that's going on. So he sent me to a gastroenterologist friend of his, who proceeded to, now at this point in time, I'm 19 years old, right? So we go into this guy's office and he's talking about what's called the differential diagnosis. So basically multiple diagnoses that this could be based on, the blood test, based on the radiologic test. And one of the things that he mentioned, so he mentioned Crohn's disease, he'd mentioned TB, he said something else, and he also said it could be cancer. And I remember I flipped, and I'm laughing now, but at the time it devastated me. I was terrified, left the room crying. I remember coming home and just, praying with everything I had, please let it not be cancer. I don't know what's happening. And so I refused to go back to him also. I was like, all right, answers are great, but I'm not going back to that guy because he just scared me and whatever. So we wound up finding another doctor who was a family friend of ours who referred us to someone else. And when we went there, he said, yes, it's probably Crohn's, but let's do a colonoscopy just to be sure. And he put me on steroids right away. So on prednisone right away to give me some relief. And so then we did the colonoscopy on Valentine's Day, ironically, which was my favorite day of the year. And I was like, really, of all things, the universe is now playing games with me. So, and the results came back and they showed Crohn's disease. So we went back to his office and, I tell people, I say that day, that statement that he said, Selvi, I'm afraid you have Crohn's disease, went to change the course of my life forever, and how could it not? And I didn't know what it meant at the time. All I knew was that, this guy is telling me, okay, you have this chronic illness. It's never going to go away. You're going to need medication for the rest of your life. And I'm like, what do you mean? What's a chronic illness? What do you mean medication? What kind of medication? Are there side effects? Like, I want to get to medical school. Like, I want to be a doctor. Like, just get me there. It got to the point where I was like, I don't really care. Just get me there. And so they kept me on steroids. Every time they tried to lower the dose, I would start feeling symptoms again. So I was on the steroids for basically 2 years continuously, which had all sorts of side effects, from, being hungry all the time, to changing the shape of my face, to changing the shape of my body. And just even emotionally, like, I didn't realize that at the time, but it really starts to mess with your emotions. And so I would be kind of all over the place emotionally, or all of a sudden I'd feel angry, or like, what's going on? And I didn't understand, I didn't know how to process anything that was happening with me, until I got to finally the senior year of college. And I was working on my senior project in chemical engineering, looking to start working. I was going to take a gap year and then go to medical school. So I had my plan all laid out. And again, I think the universe had other plans. So one day I get up and I'm doing my work, and all of a sudden I'm like, I don't feel very well. I think I have a fever. And I checked my temperature and it was 104. And my normal blood temperature, temperature is 97.4 or something. So I tend to run low. So I had never seen a temperature of 104. And I was like, oh, shoot, I'm concerned right now. That does not feel right. So I called health services. They said, put some loose clothing on, drink fluids, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. I have a temperature of 104. I don't think you heard me. So,
and it's not normal.
It's not normal. Last I checked, we're not talking about 101. This is 104. And I don't feel so good. So like, I was already starting to feel a little loopy and all of that. So I checked again. She said it's 104. Okay, come down to student health services. Let's run some blood work. So I needed to grab one of the women who were in my suite to help walk me down, because I just couldn't walk on my own. Got there, they ran some blood work. They found that my white blood cell count, which fights infection, was basically non-existent. And they said, well, we're not sure what's happening, but you need to get to the hospital because there is some infection or some kind of process happening that you're not able to fight off. This is not a good situation, was sort of the implication there. So my mom wound up coming, she got me, we went to the hospital, which is all the way. So I was going to college in New York City, and this was in Westchester County. So a good 45 minutes or so drive. So she picked me up, we went to the hospital, they admitted me, they ran some tests. It took a few days for them to finally realize I had a hole in my large intestine, so a perforation. No idea how it came, how it got there, but it was there. And they told me, we need to take you in for an emergency exploratory laparotomy. So basically, we're not exactly sure what we're going to do, but we're going to cut your abdomen open and kind of figure it out on the table. Not the words that a 21-year-old almost graduating college wants to hear. So probably needless to say, I flipped out. I was just crying nonstop, totally inconsolable. I still remember there was this one nurse assistant who was the sweetest gentleman. I wish I remember his name. He would literally hold my hand and was just talking to me and reassuring me and soothing me and just all and like making me understand that, hey, like this is just what needs to be done. Like this is not, you didn't do anything bad. You're not being punished, but this is just kind of the situation and it's okay. And the doctors know what they're doing and, all of that. So the doctors had apparently told my parents I had 24 to 48 hours to live if they didn't do the surgery. Yeah. Because as I found out much later when I finally got to medical school, a perforation means that the contents of your stool are sort of leaking into your abdomen. And that is, to say a problem is an understatement. It's lethal. You cannot survive with that. So they were right. The morning of my surgery, actually, I was still in denial. I was still like, discharge me. I want to go home. I want to graduate. I mean, I couldn't stand up straight, but I wanted to graduate.
Your mind was focusing on getting that degree and going to medical school.
I was so stubborn. And I remember they walked in that morning to examine my abdomen. And it was just, I'm sitting here at my desk and my abdomen was literally as hard as my desk is. Like it was rigid. And I was like, okay, I guess we're going to have surgery, aren't we? Like that was when it finally clicked that this was not an option.
The innocence of a 21-year-old, right?
Right? Seriously. So we go in and they do whatever they have to do. And I wake up in the recovery room. And since I was on steroids for 2 years, they couldn't actually close the incision fully. So I had these huge gaps in my skin in between that needed to heal on its own. And they had these huge sutures that were called retention sutures. And I had 2 bags on my abdomen. I had 2 drains in my abdomen. And I was just like, what the heck just happened? I was in total shock. So I had an ostomy, so couldn't use the toilet either. I didn't know that was going to happen. Like none of this was known to me at the time. And then 2 drains to drain out whatever was coming out. And then this incision that was draining other stuff. So it was just a mess is an understatement.
So you woke up to basically not recognizing yourself or not even understanding what just happened.
Exactly.
Now that's like traumatic.
It really is. It really, really is. And I didn't know how to cope with it. I didn't know how to deal with it. I wanted it over. I couldn't accept it. It was terrible. And whatever self-worth I had was just completely shot, like completely just gone out the door. Was like, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it had to happen.
It did have to happen. It
Yes.
absolutely had to happen. And so, I tell people, by the time I finished college, I came near death twice and I had 2 major surgeries and I had this bag and all of these kind of things happened. So, it had to happen that way, but it was not easy to accept, darn near impossible to accept at the time. So, I wound up relying a lot on my mom and my family to kind of help get me through it because I just couldn't process through it on my own. I didn't know that therapy was really an option, or maybe I was too cool for therapy. I don't exactly remember, but I was not dealing with my emotions, was just kind of stuffing them down, trying to ignore it and just trying to move forward. So I was told, thankfully, that the ostomy was going to be temporary, that they would be able to reverse things for me. But that it would take time. So the incision had to heal first before they could take me back into the operating room. Well, that took over 9 months. And in the meantime, my bones were so weak that I developed a compression fracture in my back because I had severe osteoporosis. So all of this took almost a year for them to take me back into the operating room. So I was like, great, okay, we're going to do the surgery. It's going to be done and everything's going to be great. Not quite.
Wow. So a year later, after you had that traumatic surgery of them pretty much opening up your abdomen, you went in to have surgery on your back.
No, it was again on my abdomen. So
it was again, okay.
Yes.
Wow.
For the back, I didn't need surgery. Yeah, this was again on my abdomen.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, that type of experience, not anyone, I don't think, with having those type of experiences, near-death experiences where you are, you literally woke up to a brand new person, then you had to learn how to, love yourself again and to process your emotion. That is not to be taken lightly. That, you know what I mean? Like those type of experiences, can either do two things to you: have you freaking give up and feel sorry for yourself,
Mhm,
or just surrender
mhm,
and say, listen, universe, listen, God, I'm not sure what you're trying to, show me right now, but I'm surrendering, and I'm just going to allow you to let your will be done, at the same time
mhm.
believing that, seeing that and that light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what you did.
Not exactly. I kind
Yeah.
of flopped a little bit back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't really have the foundation. I mean, I did pray, and I always say that my faith got me through it because some part of me knew that all of this was happening for some reason, that my life was spared for some reason. I just didn't understand what was happening. So, even after that second surgery, like the fact that I wound up in the ICU, that they told me I might have had a blood clot in my lung, that my kidney shut down, that my liver shut down, that I needed to have dialysis, that all of these things were happening. I was being poked and prodded and all of those things. There was some logic behind all of it. There was some intelligence behind, not really logic, but intelligence behind all of it that I couldn't understand at the time. I wasn't ready to understand at the time. And so I did know that there was a guiding hand, that, that God was behind all of the universe, source, however you want to phrase it, was behind me and supporting me. And that's why I was still alive. But how to process through it, I had no idea. So I tried ignoring it for years and was just like, let me just steamroll through this whole thing. I'll be fine. That caught up to me about maybe 15 years later or so. But it did catch up to me because you can't outrun it. It's impossible, as I would find out.
Isn't that something when we're going through anything traumatic in our lives? Doesn't necessarily have to be traumatic, but any type of experiences that really, difficult experiences, we tend to, I know I'm very, very, very guilty of it, tend to not want to full on address our emotions. We stuff it away, we push it away and
Mhm,
pretend as if
mhm.
everything is fine, but it
Yes,
never goes away. It shows itself back up in your body,
yes,
in some way, shape, or form.
yes.
And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely it does, because it needs to be healed. And until that happens, it is going to come up either as a symptom, or it's going to play out in life in some way, affecting a relationship, or, it has to. It just has to, because that part just wants to be healed so badly. And I feel like we live in a culture that's so focused on pleasure. Like we should all feel good all the time. We should all be happy all the time. Like that's not freaking realistic. Who feels happy
No,
time. Come on.
thank you. Even when you go on social media and you see people
Mhm,
posting their best life,
mhm,
and if you're not aware of self, then you
mhm.
would think, oh my gosh, my life sucks. They're out having a grand old time, and I'm here in this office
Mhm.
trying to, if you're not aware of it, because people are literally using external events, external things to soothe their pain. People are
Yeah,
in pain, and that's
yeah,
why the world is where it's the world is in the condition it's in right now, because there are millions of people not taking responsibility
mhm,
for their emotions and for their pain. They do not want to face it, so they
yeah,
use partying, food,
mhm,
sex,
mhm,
whatever people use to, because I was one of them. I was one of them that keep trying to stuff my mind with more information and get this degree, get this, get that, but not addressing that I have inner child wounds that I need to address. You know what I mean?
yes,
So, and it's keeping me from feeling worthy and deserving and feeling like I'm enough. So that's
mhm,
a lot of the whole world. I mean, majority of the world, millions of people walking around with wounds and pain and
yeah,
emotions because they don't want to feel.
yeah,
And that's what happened to you. But the good thing is that went on during your younger years.
yes, yes. And at the time, it was just, I didn't understand that. I was like, why am I not able to live my life? Everyone else is like drinking and partying and going on vacations and doing spring break. And I'm here at my parents' house, like sick and in pain. Like, what the hell? Right? This is not fair. And eventually it was just like, I understand now, like it had to be that way, right? Until I was finally like ready to face those things. Like the universe, like, or God or whoever, like didn't want me numbing out in that way and, you know, going to extremes. Knowing my personality, knowing how I am, like, yes, it's a blessing, you know, and now I'm able to find that balance where I can enjoy myself, but, you know again where my limits are and that sort of thing too. But you're right that it wasn't until I was finally backed into a corner. I won't say willingly, like going into the fire. Now I do, but not the first time. The first time I needed to be backed into a corner. I was in a place where, again, I needed surgery after surgery because it was a byproduct. So that first surgery happened. Eventually, that place where they put my intestines back together started to stricture. So it started to scar, it started to narrow. That led to another surgery, which was what led to me walking away from medicine because it was just too much. I was like, my body can't do this. Or I can't do this to my body anymore. It started out as can't, eventually it became won't, but it did start out as I can't do this to my body anymore. This is just too much. And I knew that I had to walk away. And that was, at the time, it was one of the hardest things that I did because that just affected my identity. It affected my self-worth. It affected all of that. But that still didn't cause me to do the deep introspection that I needed to do. I still wasn't ready. I was still looking for Western medicine, for my doctors, for my medical background, for the answers, and they couldn't give it to me because the answers are just not there.
Look at that. Your survival mind was looking for external help.
Yes.
Look at
Yes.
that. Isn't that what we all do before we come to that realization that everything we need is is inside of us. Everything. We're healers, we're educators, we're our own best savior. But
Yes.
it's that we have been taught and conditioned to believe that everything that we need, enjoyment, love, heal, I
Mhm.
mean, everything is go to the doctor when you're feeling sick. You need education, go to college. You want fun, go to the movie, eat some popcorn. Like everything, we're taught to look outside of ourselves for everything until we get to that point in life where we're like, nothing is working.
Yes. Yes. And that's exactly it. I'm so glad that you put it that way. It was just, it got to the point where everything was falling away. I wound up developing a hernia at that same incision area, which took a good 3 more surgeries. And the second surgery, what happened was they had put mesh in, which got infected. The surgeon took out part of the mesh and he left this open hole on my abdomen, which was literally draining out stool, like not lots, but enough to be limiting, right? So there was no dressing on top other than a couple of gauze pads, and that was pretty much it. So I could smell this during the day. Like it would just, when you talk about like literally permeating every part of me, in such a way that I finally got to the point where I was like, this is crazy. And he said it could take up to a year to heal. So this was going on for a year until I was just, I'm not living. This cannot be it. I don't want to do this anymore because this is just insane. And I remember being wheeled back into the operating room, lying on the operating table again, looking at the ceiling and the lights and looking around and seeing the anesthesiologist about to put in the anesthesia. And it was just, it was that point where I just drew that line in the sand and I was like, like, excuse my,
Let it out.
all right, fuck no, I'm not doing this anymore. There has to be something, there has to be anything. I don't even care what it is anymore. I am open to anything. Help. And that was it. That's what opened the door. That's what changed everything for me.
I'm glad you said that. F this.
Mhm.
Forget it. Enough is enough. And I think majority of us in the world, including myself, it takes us getting to a point of throwing our hands up and say, enough is enough.
Yes. Yes.
Suffering causes us to go within.
Yeah, it does. Because what happens when you get to that point where you're just like, I remember getting to that point, I'm like literally on my knees, like I have nothing left to lose anymore. I have a shred of dignity. That's it. And I'm not willing to give that up. Help. Anything. Yeah.
Yes. And that led you to your own awareness, your own self exploration, exploring yourself. And it's one of the most beautiful and most powerful and most scariest and most, just all those different emotions that comes with it. It's freedom, it's rewarding, it's scary. It's like, oh my, holy shit, I've been creating all of this all my entire life, and I am responsible for healing myself, and not only healing my body, but just every area of my life, body, mind, soul, everything. That is the most powerful yet scariest, yet most freeing decision that anyone can ever make. And look at you now.
Thank you. Yes.
Look at you now. There's millions of people who are suffering from Crohn's. I know that because I used to, I was part of that I used to work at this company. I'm not going to call any names, where I've met millions of people who have, well, I haven't met millions, but I've seen their records and stuff. Millions of people who are suffering from Crohn's, and they're literally looking outside of them for help, calling in for, oh, can the doctor up my medication? And, and I mean, just millions that's dependent on these medications to help them. These are foreign substances going into our bodies that is not healing the source of the problem, but putting a Band-Aid over it, and at the same time damaging something else in their bodies.
Absolutely.
And you managed to do that. Not only you managed to cure Crohn's, but you also managed to step into the other you, into your other mind. You managed to heal your mind, body, and soul, and bring yourself into the wholeness and step fully into who you were created to be. Now, if that is not a badass, I don't know who is.
Thank you. And I'm so glad that you brought up the medication, because again, I get it. Like, I was there too, let's try this, let's try that, let's try the other, let's increase the dose, let's increase the dose again. Why am I exhausted for 3 days after getting this IV infusion? Because that medicine would overwhelm my system. And it was the best I could do with what I had at the time. But looking back, I'm just like, wow, all of the answers were within. I wasn't ready to access them, and so, yeah, now that I've gotten to a point where it's just like, I feel so much clearer off of medications. But to get to that point where I was like, okay, you know what, to walk away, that took a lot. Yeah. And it had to start with healing my body first, and then the heart, then the emotions, then the spirit, the mind, like all of that then started to go in waves and ebbs and flows and all of that. But yeah, it had to start easier, if you will, like with the body, with the food, with the approachable things, and then starting to unravel the deeper layers of what's really going on here, and what is this symptom of, and not settle for the Band-Aids, right? Or to even be willing for a while to use some Band-Aids as I kept moving forward, but not using that as the be all, the end all, not using that as the crutch, because there is a transition period. I mean, you don't go from, going 100 miles an hour to just slamming on the brakes without having a major accident, right? So I was stepwise going through things as I was healing. But yeah, it is the most liberating, beautiful experience. And it really is like, the caterpillar, right? So being in that cocoon for a while, when the caterpillar is going to turn into a butterfly, it's not comfortable. It is squirming, it is moving, it is being tortured for a while. And then all of a sudden, the chrysalis starts to open and the wings start to come out, and it's beautiful. But that's the transformation process.
They say Christianity is for, let me see, hopefully I'm going to say it right. Christianity is for people who have suffered or something like that, but spirituality is for people who have been to hell and back. Because, in order to really get to know your other self and step into the fullness of who you are and really heal yourself from, you got to go through some serious shit to do that. It's not easy.
It's not. They don't call it the dark night of the soul for nothing.
For nothing, but it's totally worth it.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my gosh. If you asked me, would I go back to, the way I was before and taking the medications and not having walked through the path I've walked through? No way. I would not have it any other way. Like, from every step along my journey and every turn that it took, I will take it all, because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now.
Look at that. Look at that. So let's say someone who's listening right now, they're just so sick and tired of whatever illnesses they're dealing with, be it cancer, Crohn's, arthritis, whatever it is, because I think every diseases comes from within, from some emotions that we're holding on to.
Mhm.
How would you counsel that person to take the first step in taking steps in their own hands and really begin that road of that road of healing? Excuse me.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And you're right. Like, I tell people this all the time. They're like, well, I haven't actually been diagnosed with XYZ yet, or they think it might be Crohn's, or they think it might be colitis, but they're not really sure, or, rheumatoid arthritis, or whatever, fill in the blank. And I'm like, the disease really doesn't matter. To me, like, the diagnosis really doesn't matter. It's all a symptom, like you said, of some emotion, of some imbalance, of some disharmony that's happening in the body that's just being evidenced as a symptom, as a quote unquote disease diagnosis. Like, it really doesn't matter, right? So coming back to your question of, the first step is, it's scary, right? That thought of doing something different is scary. And so if I was talking to someone, I would counsel them on that and be like, hey, you know what? It is scary. Like, it's okay to feel that level of fear. But deep down, is there a part of you that believes that there are different answers, that believes that there really are answers? Does some part of you truly know, deep, deep down, is there a whisper that you can heal? And stop for a moment and listen. Do you hear it?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And also not taking ownership, saying this is my cancer, my
Yes.
Crohn's, my whatever, my arthritis, my whatever illness is. And that's the
Mhm.
problem. I was one of them too. I have a headache. No, I don't have the headache.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
in not taking ownership of the disease and realizing too. I have a mentor who I adore so much. When his mom was given 2 weeks to live,
Oh.
and literally, like, she was in wheelchair for like 20 years and she was in hospice and getting ready to die. Doctors gave up on her, saying that there's nothing they could do for her.
Mm.
And he saw an opportunity to really plant a seed in her mind. Like, he's like, I can't do it for you. You're going to have to do it for yourself. She was given 2 weeks and he planted a seed in her mind. First, you need to realize that you're not your sickness.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God, God bless him. And that's so true. That's the thing right there. Yeah, I would do the same, where I was like, my Crohn's, my Crohn's, my Crohn's. And eventually I'm like, why am I wearing this like a badge of honor? Wait, hold up. Like, loosen the grip. Yeah.
He was like, I told my mom, she came in here whole and complete. You're going to have to be able to see yourself separate from the ego. Like,
Yes.
you came in here fresh, brand new, filled with everything that you need inside of you. And you came in here whole and complete, but then you
Mhm.
attach yourself to external things. Then you're identifying yourself with this ego. And
Mhm.
she was determined to live, and she started visualizing herself, doing her favorite thing, swimming with the dolphins, just riding horses, everything. And today she's
Mhm.
healthy and strong and in better shape and health than she has ever been. So what you have overcome, it is so, and my mentor's mom, is so important for people to really get this,
Yeah.
that whatever is going on in your life, be it with your health, your finances, whatever it is, your relationship, that we have the power to step in and put an end to that.
Yes, we do, because we all have the power of God, of source, of the universe within us. It runs through us if we only are willing to allow it, right? And so many people are, again, like, how the ego is wired is to focus on, right and wrong, black and white, perfect and, oh gosh, like, the alternative is just unthinkable, right, for many people. And so I'm always like, are you willing to embrace your perfect imperfection,
Hmm.
right?
I like that. Yes.
Perfect just as you are.
Yes. We leave perfection, you know, in going on the pursuit for, we're looking for perfection. We leave what's already perfect,
Yes.
looking
Yeah.
for perfection. And that in that moment is when we lose ourselves, because we're leaving what's already perfect. Because we
Exactly.
came in perfect. We came in knowing everything.
Mhm.
And then we leave perfection looking for everything else to fill our, our holes that we think we have.
Exactly. It's, the wounding happens, right? When you're teeny tiny, you don't even remember it in the first place. And then it's just all about like operating from that place, right? That's how most of us go through our entire lives, is just like, okay, operating from this place of a wounded 3-year-old. Whereas, and there's nothing, of course, that's part of the journey. Like that's part of why we came, is to forget and then to remember who we truly are, right? And that's it. And when you start being willing to explore those places and go to those places of uncomfortableness, and like play with those edges, the healing that can happen is so beautiful. And you start to reclaim those pieces of yourself, right, that you had abandoned or that you pushed away in the shadows. And the minute you shine the light on the darkness, it's just, it all becomes light, and you become more whole and you heal,
That is
period.
so true. That is so true. That is very true. So, excuse me. So you were able to really do a deep dive into your own mind
Mm,
and find you found that other side of you that's been waiting for you to discover it. So
yes.
not only did you do a deep dive into your own mind by remembering who you are, you also changed the way you ate. Because I remember you said last week that, the doctors didn't talk anything about your nutrition. So you had to like, can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, either they would say it's trial and error and you just kind of need to figure things out, but we don't really know, we can't really give you any solid guidance. Or it was, okay, eat a low fiber diet, like a low residue diet, right? Which was kind of just, they would say, eat pasta, eat rice, eat bread, potatoes, and, maybe some boiled chicken or something like that. And I was just like, okay, first of all, I'm Indian. I have taste buds. That's not going to work for me, number one. Number two was like, what? That doesn't sound right. But I was so terrified of being in pain, because I was in so much pain, that I went through like a couple of years where I had no vegetables whatsoever. And my mother, I remember even my mother was worried. She's like, this just can't be okay. Like that can't be healthy. And it took me a very long time, again, like to hit rock bottom, and then to be like, okay, wait a minute, maybe something needs to be done. Maybe I should put down the pepperoni pizza. Maybe that's not serving me so much, because I was trying to numb out through food. I was like, I feel so horrible anyways. I'm in so much pain anyway, so it doesn't really make any difference. So I'm just going to eat whatever the heck I want in a bid to try and feel better in some way. But then the pain would kick in 10 times or tenfold, right? And I realized again much later that I wasn't helping my gut to heal. I wasn't helping my microbiome. That's that balance of the bacteria, the viruses, the fungi, all of the little bugs that live in our guts. And we're actually more microbe than we are human. When we look at the number of cells, it's wild. And so I was shifting things into a very unhealthy balance without realizing it. And once I started to realize that I could shift things in the other direction, actually help my gut to heal and help myself, all of a sudden I started to feel empowered. I was like, oh, wow, wait, what? I can help myself? Okay, how can I do this? And I started with baby steps, because I was trying to figure this out on my own. So, I went gluten-free first, and then I moved on to, other things from there, like paleo. And then I started to make tweaks and, tune into things over time. And this was a process that for me personally, again, figuring this out from zero, basically, it took me years to figure this out, fall flat on my face a few times, make some mistakes, and learn what was working. And your body doesn't stay exactly the same forever and ever. Like, we keep evolving, right? And so as I've grown, as I've healed, as I've evolved, my diets needed to evolve with me, and I've gotten to a point now where I've healed to a point where I have so much more flexibility. So I can go out and I can eat whatever I want and digest it. Now, I'm not going to do that on a daily basis, but I can be in that place. Let's say it is a special occasion. Like, I don't have to worry about XYZ food making me sick. I still make my conscious choices on a daily basis, but there are times, like if it's my birthday, you better believe I'm going to have a piece of chocolate cake, because I love chocolate cake. So I'm just not going to have it every day. So it's that kind of thing, and that level of peace where it's just like, wow, I know what I need to do to take care of myself. I know how to keep myself in balance, is so freeing. There's not that constant loop of, what is this going to do to me? Oh my gosh, if I eat that, what's that going to do to me? If I go out to a party, what's going to happen? Or if I meet my friends, what's going to happen? Am I going to be sick? Am I going to wind up in the bathroom? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? Am I going to be exhausted? That whole mental loop is gone. Like I don't even need to, it's not even on my radar anymore.
So you mentally, so basically you're saying that when you were suffering from Crohn's, and one of the biggest worries of people with Crohn's is, my goodness, what am I going to eat? I can't eat this, I can't eat that, because especially if they're out.
Mhm.
So you're thinking it's not necessarily the food, is more of a mindset thing, or is it both?
It is both. It is both.
Okay.
So I don't mean to say, if you go out and you start eating anything you want all the time, that's going to help your microbiome. Absolutely not. That's not going to keep you in an optimal balance, right? And that will reflect in some way, shape, or form. I also do believe that life is meant to be enjoyed. So if there are, certain special occasions or something, like I will reserve like those things for rare occasions. And I know, again, like how to bring my body back into balance afterwards. So
Mhm.
it's not like, I go out, I have this whatever meal, and I've been able to now like have like a glass of wine once in a while too. Like it's crazy to me, like it's mind blowing how much healing has happened. But then what do I need to do afterwards to keep myself in balance if I decide that I'm going to do that and have that enjoyment, right? So it can't be an everyday thing. It cannot be a 24/7 thing. I will go completely back out of balance. I know that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And so, how can I keep myself in that healing place most of the time, at least 90% of the time, right? Where it kind of will even out.
Right. And what is it that you do to stay balanced out on a daily
Okay.
basis? What does your
Oh,
day look like?
I was going to say, that's a lot, Nadine.
just the top
I'll give you
points.
some of the highlights. Yeah,
Yes,
for
yes, yes.
So I meditate every day. I find for me that that's absolutely key. I went to a 10-day silent meditation retreat a couple of years ago, and it was just amazing. It's called Vipassana, and you don't talk to a soul for 10 days, and you meditate, and all you do is you go inward. They teach you the technique, and that's it. And so for me, meditation really helps me to ground. It helps me to stay centered, to stay within my body, and to notice what's coming up. Are there things that need to be addressed? Because there's constantly little things that do come up, right? So it helps me to sort of keep a survey on my internal world and keep it in balance. So I love that. I work out every day, whether it's yoga, whether it's cardio, whether it's weights, whether it's different things. I love to do that. I spend time out in nature. Usually I go out for a walk. I mean, I live in New York City, but at least one of the parks I'll go and I'll walk and have my exposure that way, or I'll go near the river, things like that. That's important for me. And most of the time what I'm eating is super clean, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables. I mean, I know people might roll their eyes and say, okay, that sounds cliche, but it's true. Like I will go through a container of grapes in like a few days, like a couple of pounds of grapes I can easily go through, yeah, in a few days, like that sort of thing, and I love them. But I do like my chocolate cake too. So there's time and space for everything. And again, it's a balance, right? I find I went from, again, not being able to have vegetables for a couple of years to now like thriving and loving fruits and vegetables. And I know how I feel when I eat them most of the time, and I know how I feel when I don't. And so I make those choices accordingly. Thanksgiving is going to be coming up soon. So, I know I'm going to enjoy the holiday and have, whatever. And then I know, again, the next day I'm going to go back to what makes me feel really, really good. Lots of water for me, lots of hydration. I don't do a whole lot of, um, you know, caffeine or that sort of thing. I might have a cup of green tea, which I enjoy. But I keep things pretty simple for the most part in terms of my diet, and just even in terms of life. Like I try to just simplify things too, like just, life is precious. Just what I'll tell you, and one thing that I love to do every day is find a reason to find magic in the day, whether it's a
Mm.
sunset, whether it's the sunlight glistening on the river, whether it's seeing, 3-year-olds playing on the playground and just seeing that joy on their face, or somebody's puppy dog who, wants to play with me and dropping to my knees on the sidewalk and just playing with the dog. Some reason to find magic in the mundane. And that I love. That just, it makes me smile. It makes my heart smile. It just keeps me in a really, really beautiful space.
I like that. I like that. It's really simple. It's the simplest thing, just looking for the magic and being grateful
Mhm.
and eating the things that really give our bodies life, like fruits and vegetables or light foods energized by the sun, that
Yes.
really let us feel so much more better than eating a donut or pizza.
Yes, yes, it's so true. It's so true. And that's the trade-off. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna eat pizza. Like I know I'm gonna feel heavy afterwards. Like, am I okay with
Yes.
that? You
Not,
know?
not only not only heavy, but it just puts you, it changes for me when I eat anything other than, healthy food. I just, it puts me in a mood, like my emotions change. I
Mm,
feel,
mhm,
heavy, and then I feel at the same time just sad and
mhm.
just depressed, and those, all those low vibrational feelings.
Yes.
You literally are what you eat. It really
Yeah.
is the truth.
100%, 100%. And that's it. Like, even when I say heavy, like digestively heavy is one thing, but energetically heavy, like I'll feel a shift, right? So again, like,
Yes.
how much am I willing to shift? And am I really okay with that? Right. So it's making those kind of choices. Yeah, absolutely.
And focusing on what's going right, because we
Yes.
were we were so conditioned. It wasn't until recently, well, not so recent, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I realized that my internal dialogue was so bad. Like
Mm,
I was always looking for things that was going wrong, and complaining, and
mhm.
just focusing on what's going right, because there's so many things in our lives that we can focus on that is going right.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of really training your mind to see the best, to train your mind. It's all mind, right? It's like our mind is what make us and break us at the same time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's in some ways it's deceptively simple, and in other ways it's extremely complicated because again, the mind is wired to think negatively, to look for what's wrong, to look for the loopholes, like to not expect miracles, to not expect positive things to happen, to not expect the best to happen. And so it's a process to rewire things, right? So if we are gonna if a toddler is, or not even a toddler, let's say an infant is learning how to walk, they're going to fall down several times before they actually walk. Now, would we chastise them or yell at them and be like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you walk already? You 11th-month-old. I mean, come on.
That is
Nobody.
so true, but yet we do it to ourselves.
Yeah. Which is why, if you have someone who is either guiding you or keeping you accountable or those kind of things, it's easier because the self-talk will kick in really easy. I'm XYZ years old. Why don't I have my stuff together? Why don't I know how to do this yet? Because you didn't, because you're learning, because it's the first time. So I would say, to anyone, if they're, thinking of starting on this path, is to have the support that you need, whether it's a guide, whether it's a coach, whether it's a spiritual mentor, whether whoever it is, or a buddy. But to keep you from falling into those things as much as possible, right? And to kind of keep you on track, it will set you up for success as opposed to trying it for like we do so many things, trying it for a few weeks and be like, this is too hard, forget it. This must just be for those people, right? The Eckhart Tolles or the Deepak Chopras or the enlightened ones. Like it must just be for them. No, it's for everyone.
Mhm.
Everyone can access it.
Yes, yes. This was such a beautiful conversation. And if someone wanted to connect with you, because you're just such a beautiful spirit, I get to see you, so I can see, your beautiful face, and just the love that, that comes out of you, and the passion when you speak about it, because you've been there. You have suffered through this. You went through so many life-threatening surgeries and were told by your doctors that you only had a certain amount of time to live. I mean, that is some traumatic shit. So you've been through it.
Yeah.
And, if someone really wanted to connect you because they're just so sick and tired of living,
Yeah.
with whatever Crohn's or whatever diseases, because it doesn't really have to be Crohn. It can be anything that you're living with, because it's all mind.
Mhm.
How would they be able to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that because when I speak with people, it's the same, right? It's just they go from this place of thinking about it, of almost obsessing about it, if you will, to it's an afterthought, like it's barely even on my radar. And that's what's possible when
Mm.
we dive deep and when we do the work and when we, do what needs to be done to bring you back into balance. So, that's the invitation that I always issue to people. And the easiest way for folks to reach me is going to be my website. It's www.drselvi.com. So it's selvi.com is the easiest way. There's a button on there that says let's chat. If you scroll to the bottom, you can feel free to book a call with me, and you can talk about your unique situation, what's going on, what you're looking to address and how to best get there. I'm happy to offer that to any of your listeners. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Selva. This was such an amazing, amazing conversation. And I really hope that, the people who have listened to this have taken back, regardless of where, if they have any type of diseases or sicknesses, but we always need help in whatever areas of our life that we're struggling in, and take the value that you've shared to implement in their lives and, get on the road of healing. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your wisdom, your heart, you're just your beautiful soul being on this show today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.